Hello YouTube, this is Insane Monster. So, as you can see, this is part 2 of What If Deku was the son of Scar and Lapis Lazuli. Now then, if you haven't watched the other part, being part 0 and part 1, I do recommend you do watch it so that you understand the circumstances and world building of this What If. Also, I do hope you will enjoy and have been enjoying the focus on Dragon Asta and Anti-Venom Deku to get them to a stopping point for new what ifs to be in the lineup. With all that said, before we get started, as per usual, link in the description below for Mert's Discord and my channel Discord, as well as some other things you may be interested in. With all that said, hit it. Okay, now then, we see Izuku, who's apparently dreaming again. Yet again, the old, tiring dream of him being in a blue area, only having what looks to be the view of a one-way mirror. As he goes up to it, he looks behind himself, seeing Lapis. Clouded eyes, but this time she's smiling. It was odd. And without realizing, when his hand was placed against what was normally just a one-way mirror, he fell through it this time, entering a clear white void. It was odd. Even more so, there was only 3 things within that void. 2 giant gray doors. One closest to him had markings. The other also had markings, but different. There was a man there. Dark skin, white hair, red eyes. And without even realizing it, there was someone else there. It was harder to see because, oddly enough, they were almost as white as the void, only having an odd outline about them. Humanoid in nature, no hair, no clothes or anything else but legs, arms with the typical hands and feet, obviously, but no eyes, no nose, no ears, just a mouth, and one with a large smile. He looked back at the man and saw an X-shaped scar on it, right on his face. As the door that was closest to him began to open, revealing a black void. On the other side of the white void he was in, as an odd, gigantic, gray-colored eye opened up, and strange rope or ribbon-like appendages that seemed like hands just came out and reached out to him. As it wrapped around, he looked back at the man and the odd white figure, asking, "Who are you? What is this? What's going on?" As the door then begins to shut, he asks, "What's happening?" As he jumps up into his bed, breathing heavily, grasping his face, trying to calm himself down. He recognizes that he's glowing as he sighs. Been a while since I've done this. Looking out the window, with his apartment building he lives in now, it is right next to Dagobah Beach. Seeing that, oh man, really bad this time. Seeing a good chunk of the ocean from the shore of the beach, a good distance out, being frozen solid. Luckily, this sometimes happens, and they've learned to have a type of schedule for it. Hence why there is currently a sign next to the beach prohibiting people from going into the water a certain time once the sun goes down, as well as a certain time in the morning, more or less when Izuku's sleeping. Only took the local inhabitants to do this themselves after a couple of late night swimming turned out with a couple people being frozen solid from the waist down in the ocean of the beach. Though being so close to the ocean, it diverted the attention to the larger mass of water away from the pipes in the apartment building, so they were safe. So as he got up and turned on the light, he looked at himself, and his normally tanned skin is now blue. As he sighs, remembering the first time this happened, during training, when he was getting more and more used to his gem powers. He accidentally turned blue, and his body got larger. It doesn't get larger anymore, but it still turns blue whenever he wants nowadays. Though, when he's stressed out, worried, or has some kind of mental stress, like worries and stress and all that, he can end up turning blue and staying that way until he works out some frustration, normally through exercise. And today would just happen to be his first day of UA, as he just sighed, remarking, looking at his eyes, remembering that after that first time he turned blue, one of his red eyes was permanently turned blue. So, as he got dressed, he grabbed a hooded poncho to cover himself up, hoping to explain to as little people as possible why he was blue. And of course, Inko noticed the obviously frozen ocean and asked if he was okay. He remarked that he was fine, with Amethyst being there, not the same one as in Steven Universe, mind you. But Amethyst being there saying, "Man, I think you might have broken your record on this one." Geez, how bad was it? He just sighs, remarking, "It was more weird than bad. It was the same thing with the mirror, but I fell through the mirror this time and into a white void with two people in there and two doors, one of which opened up a black void with a giant eye in it and extending these weird rope-like arm things to pull me in as the door shut on me." As Moonstone remarked, "That does seem odd. They do know about the scar, but they don't know anything about what the truth is, or who the white figure is that Izuku saw. So they recognized some of the descriptions he gave of Scar, as they did tell him a bit about his father, but they didn't know much themselves, since it seemed like he didn't like talking about his past. Very similar to his mother as well. They had that in common, in spades. But everything was settled, and he got dressed, and wish good luck, with Tiger Eye going out with a pair of skates. And yes, you heard me correctly. Since this sometimes happens on a irregular basis, especially on calm nights, like it was that night, people have taken accustomed to more or less skating on the frozen ocean when it happens, as a form of recreational use while it thaws out, but is still frozen pretty solid. As he walks over to school, he has his poncho on and covers up with the hood on it. He finds this kind of apparel very relaxing to him. As he's walking up to the gate of UA, he hears somebody calling out a nickname that he really isn't that fond of, but does accept. As we turn back a couple of seconds, as Mina's walking, seeing Izuku's poncho covering him, she looks down at his hand, seeing it's blue, and smirks, running over to him, jumping on his back, saying, "Blueberry!" With Izuku just blushing, telling her, "Really? Again with that nickname?" As he laughs, remarking, "Well, you're the only person I know who turns blue sometimes, as well as blushes blue, out of all things." As he just looks at her with his blue-skinned face, stating, "Alright, let's just get going." Of course, Mina asked about how bad was it, considering now she saw on her phone, as he checked for the news, that the news crew more or less has coverage on the large amount of ocean of Dagobah beach that was frozen solid, with people now skating on it. As he remarked, laughing a little bit, stating, I know it's not a joking thing, but honestly, you really should be keeping a record of this." With Izuku looking at her, stating, glad at least some people can enjoy themselves from it." As he does ask, what did he dream about this time? Or was it the same weird mirror thing? He told her, and she says, "That sounds unsettling. Especially the whole thing about the giant eye and those weird black hand things." I mean, what part of you does that come from? He just shrugs his shoulders, stating, "No clue, and I'm not even sure I want to know." As they entered the hallway and find their classroom, they see how huge the door is, wondering if giants go to this school. Upon opening it, they see Bakugo arguing with Ida, as Izuku still has his hood on, covering most of his face, revealing more or less the lower part of it still blue. Seeing this, people look at Izuku and Mina, wondering who the guy with the blue skin is, with Bakugo getting up and walking over, asking, "Must have been a bad one, huh, Izuku?" As he removes his hood, remarking, "No, just weird." Just sighing, feeling a bit exasperated, having people just assume it would be horrific, but mostly it was weird to him more than anything. As Ida recognizes him and congratulates him on being such a good student and recognizing part of the test that he didn't. he said, no, wait. He was cut off as Ochako showed up. She did see what Izuku did and remarked, I recognize that white and blue hair anywheres. You're the guy who took out the 0-pointer. As he looked back, being a bit nervous, stating, yeah. This is when Aizawa showed up, asking them to be quiet and introducing them that he is going to be their homeroom teacher, which somewhat surprises them. As Aizawa looks at Izuku, he's seen his file. That is not his normal skin color. And asked, should you go to the nurse's office? As he sighs, remarking, no, no, no. As soon as I can get some exercise or do something to work out some stress, I'll go back to normal. With everyone else confused by what they're talking about. Aizawa remarks, well, good, then this would be done quicker then. As he explains that they'll be going to the sports field in order to do a Quirk assessment test, skipping the entrance ceremony. Remarking to a question of the entrance ceremony, he replies that UA is in the normal school, so he can run it however he sees fit, telling them to go get their gym uniforms on and hurry. As they go get dressed, Aizawa looks at a tablet that shows off a number of the one-pointer robots. Remembering something he talked about with Principal Nezu and All Might, remarking that 2 of their students actually have 2 quirks, and they would like to see some aspects of what they're capable of, as well as other students, hoping that those 2 would help push them to become much more. As a result, he was given access to a number of robots and told to create 3 tests as alongside the work assessment test that he was already going to be doing. So he agreed and came up with tests using them to see what they can do offensively, defensively, and capture-wise. All 3 would be very important in terms of hero work. As they were getting changed, Todoroki just hurried up, changed, and left. And Izuku, taking his shirt off and such, revealed his tattoos and the gem on his back, with Ida remarking, okay, those tattoos, they're part of your quirk, right? But that gem on your back? Bakugo butting in, stating they're both part of his quirks. The gem's part of one, and those markings are the other. As they look surprised, with Kirishima stating, whoa, you have 2 quirks? Hey, isn't that Todoroki guy the same way? With Ida remarking, yes, I believe so, though I don't know which quirk he has. If we were to go by his appearance, it would have to do with ice and fire, I believe. It is somewhat convenient how hair color can sometimes link to a person's quirk. With Izuku sighing, remarking, yeah, I mean, my markings appeared while I was still pretty young, but I've always had the gem on my back. With Mineta wondering, I wonder what would happen if it got removed. Izuku looking at him, stating, don't. It's literally a part of my body, so I'd rather not have people trying to remove it. As Mineta backs up, stating, alright. with Bakugo slamming the locker, stating, and until you turn back to normal, it's going to be annoying. With everyone confused about that. For those who don't know, when a gem hybrid, well, turns into a similar color to their gem mother, it results in something that boosts their abilities. In Steven's case, it boosted his already base abilities while also boosting his speed, strength, and etc. However, that is in the case of someone who is half diamond. As a half lapis lazuli, Izuku has more of a speed boost than strength, but is still pretty physically strong normally. And with One for All, he hasn't really gotten a chance to try it in this form, not really knowing what would happen. So, as they got out on the field, everyone saw Izuku's markings. Aizawa was told ahead of time that these are just part of his quirk. As the girls were staring, Mina told them that it's fine. They have to do with his quirk, showing off that Mina knows him personally, as Aizawa explains what they'll be doing. Tossing a ball over to Izuku, telling him what to do, throwing it at full power with his quirk. As he understood, taking a deep breath in, he charges up One for All. As a blue light then just streams from his blue eye, he reels back the ball and throws it as hard as he can, sending it into orbit, being much easier for him. And in his current state, it gives it a bit of a speed boost for his arm movement, allowing even more force to be behind One for All, shocking everybody when he gets Infinity, with Bakugo wondering, has he been holding back on me? And if so, I am so glad I did not get punched by that. Because he's seen what Izuku can do in this state before during some training at Deku Beach growing up, seeing that he can be incredibly fast. As Aizawa stated, okay, wildly unexpected outcome, but as he tries to compose himself from what he just saw, and thinks, okay, he's supposed to have hydrokinesis and a quirk called transmutation. Did he amp up his body's strength to insert amounts by manipulating his blood or something? Human bodies are mostly made out of water, so maybe that might explain the current blueness of his skin. As he just continues stating and explaining the rules of what will be done, and that they can use their quirks as much as they want. As this follows, everyone took their turns and such, with Aizawa giving them the information that the one who comes in last will be expelled, causing everyone to worry. Well, not everyone. The ones who are more confident are just fine. For the sprinting run, Izuku more or less blitz it. Or you get to about 1.7 seconds. As Aizawa was shocked by this, and Izuku wasn't even in a running stance. And he doesn't look tired at all. Thinking, okay, this has to be some kind of enhanced state he's doing with his quirk or something, right? As he isn't gonna think too hard about it, since this is weird already, but quirks can act pretty weird sometimes. As they just continued like that, As for the high jump, Izuku takes off his shirt, revealing his muscles as Aizawa asks, "What are you doing?" He looks at Aizawa stating, "I don't want to rip my shirt." As from the gem on his back that Aizawa did know about had to do with his other quirk, what looked like water wings formed from it as he jumped up, just going higher and higher, essentially flying as high as he can or as high as he wants at this point, getting up to about the same length as about 3 football fields and flying down. With Aizawa pinching his nose, stating, okay, just no more wings, please. As Izuku laughs, remarking, "Alright, that's fair." At the end of the normal physical tests, Izuku did finish first, and finally worked out enough stress to turn back to normal, which shocked some people as they realized what Bakugo was actually talking about back in class. Well, Bakugo, Izuku, and such were talking about in class as well as the hallway to the changing room. As they just see that he's actually tan. Very, well, decently tanned. As Aizawa then remarks, "Well, part 1 is now done. Next we'll be doing part 2. As this surprised them, but Ida did mention that they are in the hero course, so I wouldn't expect anything less but adding some aspects that wouldn't be part of our normal school physicals, especially considering we're allowed to use our quirks." As Aizawa shook his head and revealed as he pushed the button the robots, stating that he wants to see what they can do in 3 aspects: physical combat, defensive techniques, as well as capturing. These are the one pointers, the weakest robots they have that can fight back. So, you will try each of these 3 aspects on one robot. So everyone gets 3 robots just in case they end up destroying them by accident. Or by purpose, in especially Bakugo's case. Which he does blow it to bits. Though for the defensive portion, he more or less maneuvers around it, staying out of its blind spot, which is a defensive tactic, and is following the rules by not attacking it for this part. As for restraining, he more or less just clotheslines the one pointer by the neck extension, slamming it on its back as he wraps his arms around it, with Aizawa stopping the robot, seeing that if this was a human, that tactic probably would have worked pretty well, especially with the added force from the explosion, propelling Bakugo towards the person. As for Todoroki, attack, pierced it with an icicle, capture, froze it at the wheels and such so it couldn't move, and defensive just made an ice wall. All in all, he hasn't used his other quirk at all. Next we see Izuku, who reeled his right arm back with open palm, as they were wondering what he was going to do, fearing he might shoot out water at it. As the robot rushed towards Izuku, he went in after the robot swung at him, getting low and then slapping the robot's chest, causing lightning to surge around the robot. As he jumps back, the robot couldn't move, as it crumbled away into what looked like iron dust. Aizawa, pretty surprised by this, though he did see what he did to the zero pointer, and this time he didn't just go on impulse. He had a plan of what to do. And that made Aizawa worry what would happen if Izuku went full force with that kind of thing against another living thing. Not really keen on imagining what would happen. As for you who have seen Full Metal Alchemist, more or less, they get themselves destroyed from the inside out. Next would be his defensive tactic, as he takes his left hand and prepares it. As it's going straight for Izuku, he slams his left hand on the ground, creating a wall blocking the robot's attack. With Aizawa snapping out of it, thinking, okay, transmutation. If I remember correctly, it had something to do with some weird thing in regards to something called alchemy. Because even in our world, we have the concept of alchemy, so it stands to reason they do. As they see this, they see that a chunk of the ground was remolded into a wall. But Aizawa asking, okay, so your right arm destroys and your left arm remolds, correct? Izuku look down, smirking, stating, more or less, though there is something else. As Aizawa stated, well, can you put the ground back to normal before we continue? As he used his left hand and did so. With Ida asking Bakugo, what exactly is that quirk? Bakugo stating it's called transmutation. The way he told me is that it works like this: construction, destruction, and reconstruction. So he, as Ida remarked, so he breaks down things and remolds them in a way. Actually, he only remolded it with his left. With his right, he destructed it to the smallest part that he can think of, which would be that pile of iron dust that is now mostly blown away. Ida not really also wanting to think of what would happen if that was a human. As Bakugo continued, stating, but there is another thing, and it does have a slight condition. But it turns out to be more useful than anything else. As the robot was coming to Izuku, Izuku claps his hands. As Bakugo smirks a little bit, always finding it interesting when he does this. Izuku slams it onto the ground with both hands as lightning surrounds the ground of the robot. Iron walls begin to surround it, with an iron ceiling covering it as well. Aizawa being shocked by this, with Momo being very interested in knocking on the metal, remarking, it's iron, but this ground is rock concrete, right? Kicking the ground, confirming that this is concrete, as Izuku explains that while his right arm can destruct and his left arm can construct by remolding things, using them together brings them together for construction, destruction, and reconstruction. I had to know the atomic structure of what I needed to make, as well as what I had to work with. More remarking, that's almost similar to my core creation. I can turn my fat lipids into whatever object I need. Making a metal stick in her hand, with Izuku remarking, kind of. There's a bit of a limit to mines. I can't make inorganic things organic like you. You turn organic fat lipids into inorganic metal, and so I can't do that. And I can't make organic inorganic, so there's that. Plus, the amount of effort I put into it would result in how well made what I'm making comes out. Making more complicated things is a bit more difficult, like a phone or a computer. And as for anything else, I can't just make things out of nothing. I gotta take into account what I'm using and what I want to use. So if I want to make something big, I gotta take a lot of something and transmute it. As he somewhat understands, it also reminds her of that old alchemy philosophy that humans used to have in their history, attempting to turn iron into gold, which Izuku can technically do, but he keeps that fact on the down low pretty well. As Aizawa stated, alright, so before we can continue, do you mind turning the iron dome back into concrete floor? I'd rather not have to deal with the principal's complaints about this. As Izuku complied, restoring it, with Mina laughing. As Bakugo stated, yeah, not really the kind of person that's easy to confront. But I got my fair hits in. As everyone else continues, and Aizawa tallies up the final marks. Mineta going in dead last, though his defensive and capture method using his sticky balls was also quite well done. He just has very little in terms of combat abilities. As he smirks, remarking that it was a lie and that he wasn't actually going to uh, expel anybody from UA, shocking everybody. As Momo remarked that she probably should have told everybody that she realized that, with everybody looking at her thinking, yeah, you should have. With everybody leaving, Mina jumps onto Zuko's back, congratulating him on getting first place, causing him to blush blue. With Mina stating, oh, come on, Blueberry. With Izuku stating, stop with that, please. As it is embarrassing, but he won't outright demand that she stops. With Sue asking, hey, are you guys, with Mina blushing a bit and smirking? And Sue getting it, with all the other girls getting it, as well as the guys. With Kirishima stating, well, yeah, as Kirishima did know Izuku and Mina, though he never really met Bakugo until recently. As Uraraka states, oh, I see why you call him Blueberry. That when he had that blue skin, and the fact that his blush is blue too, causing Izuku to blush even more, remarking, can we please stop talking about this? As Aizawa tells them to hurry up and get changed again, as they did so. As Aizawa walked off, he sees All Might and Nezu, as he remarks, well, seems like it was more interesting than I thought. Though it seems like that young Todoroki seems very reluctant to use his other quirk. And I can see why Midoriya actually didn't use his quirk a lot or at all during the first part of this. Honestly, it'd be quite destructive as well as very constructive. All in all, he could be equals part of one-man wrecking crew as well as a one-man rebuilding unit. Stating that all in all, even if he does cause damage to the area around him in a fight, he could probably or most definitely fix it without much issue with his transmutation quirk. Nezu stating, yes, very much so. I just wanted to see further details on what he can do after what he did to the zero pointer in the test after all. With All Might remarking, yes, he does have quite the aptitude. And from that added test at the end, I believe they all have a good amount to grow. With, as I was stating, yeah, I suppose so. But if they disappoint, I'm still kicking them out. As Nezu just kind of laughs, with All Might asking, is that really okay? With Nezu remarking, it's fine. I believe the students will be alright. I believe you should be prepared for your class that will be coming up soon. As All Might remembered, oh yes, I'm a teacher now. As everyone was leaving school that day, Hiroshima, Bakugo, Uraraka, Ida, Mina, and Izuku walked out as they began to talk about the test they did and how well they did. With Ida asking, Midoriya, that blue state you were in, did it enhance your physical abilities? Does it have something to do with your hydrokinesis quirk? I'm asking because it's the only thing that makes sense since human bodies are mostly made out of water. Izuku stating, yeah, not really wanting to go into detail about this whole gem thing. Mina does know about it, and she has agreed to keep it on the down low. Bakugo, however, does not know, because for one, he's not sure how a hothead like Bakugo would react to Izuku being half alien, let alone half magic alien rock. So yeah, as Bakugo remarks, oh, and that was you that froze the ocean of the Dagobah beach again, wasn't it? I've been keeping track of how far you've been making it, and honestly, this does top all others, like by 3 times. I gotta say, I think it was like 70 feet out, with either remembering that report that he saw on TV before leaving for school, as he remarks, that was you? Izuku stating, well, it happens sometimes whenever I have a bad or really, really weird dream. And yeah, it's partially why we ended up moving to the beach. It was safer since my powers diverted it out to the ocean instead of the piping system of the apartment complex. As Ida remarks, wait, you can use ice too? Izuku remarking, yeah, well, I can use water in all forms. Ice, water, steam. More or less. Pretty simple. As Ida remarks, huh, it is pretty useful. As Achako states, yeah, pretty much anybody with an ice quirk would be pretty useless against you, wouldn't they? As he smirks, remarking, yeah. And Bakugo states, in close combat isn't really much of an option, as especially with his transmutation quirk, though he's a bit too unwilling to use it on people for that. Remembering what happened to the robot, everyone just felt a shiver go down their spine as Ochako remarked, "Yeah, I don't think that would end well if they got hit by that." Izuku remarking, "Don't worry, it only would work like that if I focused on things like what makes up our bodies. If I don't and hit somebody instead of my intended target, then it won't really do anything. At most, there might be a feedback effect causing a bit of a force to push us away from each other. So that's about it." Being relieved by that, they calm down and head their separate ways. As that happens, they then go to school the next day, doing all the normal school things like every high school. As they finally got to the hero class, with All Might bursting in his Silver Age costume stating, "I am here, walking in like a hero." As he smirks, he explains that they'll be doing combat training and hitting a button revealing the cases with their costumes in it, telling them to get dressed and meet at ground beta. As Izuku's getting dressed, they see that he isn't actually wearing a shirt and just wears a poncho over it, as well as wearing things that seem like martial arts clothing on his lower half, and a colored sash around his waist as a belt, coloring with a bit of a yellowish color and light reddish orange. With Denki asking, "Why aren't you wearing a shirt and that poncho thing?" And Izuku just remarks, "Oh, if I wore a shirt, my wings would just kind of tear out the back all the time. So I got pretty comfortable wearing these. Covers up, as well as makes my wings free to use." With Todoroki remarking, "Makes sense. Gonna be a hero. Best to make your hero costume work best for you." As he just smirks. Everyone heading out the ground beta, All Might sees them, remarking, "They say clothes make the pros, and you are living proof," revealing everyone's hero outfit. As Mina is happy how hers turned out, with Izuku telling her that, "Yeah, I figured this would be your style from the beginning," remarking about the pattern on her bodysuit. Acid dye. As he just laughs, telling Mina that she really wished that she was more detailed about her description, showing some discomfort about her skin tight suit. With Mineta being a perv, stating that he loves this school, with Izuku looking at him stating, "You should really keep those things inside your head." As All Might explains the scenario for the exercise, pulling out a sheet of paper. There will be two teams. Each team will have two members. One will play the heroes and one will play the villains. The villain team has a bomb. Of course, this is fake, but to win, they either have to capture the heroes or defend the bomb for, for as long as the time limit. As for the heroes, for them to win, they either have to make physical contact with the bomb or capture both of the villains. As this was understood, the lots were drawn. This time, Bakugo ended up being teamed with Todoroki. As this just continued, and everyone went to the monitor room. Looking at the screen, they were wondering about how this would turn out. Mina stating that it doesn't look like Todoroki is going to use his fire half, as they do know about each other's quirks now. Stating that, so if he's only going to use his ice quirk, it's really not going to do much against Izuku. In fact, it's just going to put him at a bigger disadvantage. As the villains Bakugo and Todoroki are at the bomb, Bakugo gets set, telling Todoroki to get his flames ready. Todoroki, being hesitant about this, asking why. As he states, because that ice of yours is going to be useless against Midoriya. As he states, what? He can control water. So what? As before Bakugo can explain, Todoroki just had enough and froze the entire inside of the building, as well as a good chunk of the outside, covering it in ice, with the hallways and stairways being completely filled with ice, with Bakugo being frustrated, stating, "Idiot! Yeah, hydrokinesis lets him control water, but it lets him control all forms of water, you idiot! You just gave him ammo!" As he just slaps his face, realizing that he's with someone who has issues about his own quirk, and how that is going to get them the loss. As Izuku and Uraraka look at this, he remarks, "Oh yeah, Todoroki doesn't know I can just melt this ice and use it for my own means, does he?" As he realized he left before all what they were talking about in at the whole thing with the ice and stuff in the locker room, what is going to hinder them. As Izuku smirks, remarking, "You know what? This is actually better than I thought." With Ochako asking what is he thinking. First, he flares up his wings to fly up and finds the floor they're on with the bomb. This happens quickly to make sure that they don't notice him, but Bakugo still feel like he got spotted. Just flicking his tongue, being annoyed at his partner not listening to his advice before just doing something like this. As Izuku tells Uraraka what floor they're on, he states that he'll handle Bakugo and Todoroki. You go after the bomb, alright? And she remarks, "Okay, but how are you gonna handle them both?" He walks over to a nearby fire hydrant, clapping his hands and then patting the fire hydrant, messing with the valves to release the water, taking the water from it as well as the water from the building, now completely filled with ice and covered in it, melting it. As Todoroki realizes he might have messed up, expecting to be more or less partially drowned by this, but it all floods away. As all the water is going toward Izuku, it's being compressed as it starts to glow a bit, As for those who don't know what this is, when something like water and air is compressed, especially in anime, it begins to glow quite brightly, especially when it's highly compressed with a lot of air in a very small space. For reference, One Piece, it's similar to Bartholomew Kuma's air bomb that just looked like a shining dot that exploded when the air was released. All in all, he creates a water trident, highly compressed and giving off a lot of heat, even letting off some steam after it was properly formed. He stops the fire hydrant from shooting water and gestures Uraraka that they'll be going now. Bakugo getting prepared with an AP shot, something he came up with early than in canon, knowing that he might have to face Izuku in UA in some kind of test eventually, though not expecting it to be in their first hero course test. As Todoroki was getting prepared, thinking that he could just keep blasting the water into steam by heating it up without using his flames. As Izuku walks in through the door, he smirks, going off the trident, with Bakugo realizing what he did, instantly using his AP shot, with Izuku reforming the trident into a shield, blocking it easily. As Todoroki tried to get in close on his left, trying to stay away from his right, only to be punched by a water fist coming out of the spear that is now being altered, as Izuku creates a wall to block off Bakugo's shots made out of iron from the concrete floor of the building. As Todoroki is now facing what looks like a high-pressured water clone of his. He tries to freeze it over, only to find that he's only freezing like a small top layer, breaking free. As the students in the monitor room are confused, asking, wait, why didn't that water clone of Todoroki freeze? All Might stating, Izuku Midoriya highly compressed all the water from the hydrant he opened up, as well as all the ice Todoroki made to create it, meaning it's under extreme pressure, making it very hot. So it doesn't really matter. At most, he'll only be able to melt a small top layer. The rest of it is under such heat that it won't freeze. As the clone goes towards Todoroki, punching a hole in the wall. As Todoroki dodges it, trying to get some distance, he's then met by one of the arms extending, wrapping a water bubble around his head, lifting him up, with Todoroki holding his breath, not being able to get out. If he freezes this right now, he'll be stuck with an ice chunk over his head, and heating it up might not be as good, considering it would boil his eyes out. As Bakugo had enough trying to and just tried to get over the iron wall, there was a hole in the ground behind it. As Izuku pops out from another hole forming and goes after Bakugo. As Bakugo tries to use his gauntlets, Izuku clapped his hands, grabbing both of Bakugo's gauntlets, sealing up the mechanism that would allow him to use a large-scale explosion, and forcing them behind his back, sticking them together with his alchemy. More or less, turning his weaponized gauntlets vessel made for his quirk into bulky handcuffs. As the bell goes off, stating "Miss Bomb captured." With Todoroki released and Bakugo freed, they just see Uraraka standing there next to the bomb, looking at another hole that was made right behind the bomb. Must have been made beforehand when Izuku leaped out to go against Bakugo directly when he leaped over the iron wall. Ochako, using her zero gravity quirk, went through the hole behind the bomb to go catch it. With that, the match is over. And we head over to where we have the roundabout explanation, with All Might announcing Izuku as the MVP, asking his students why. As Momo raised her hand and explained why, Todoroki refused to hear the advice of his partner and caused an event that severely limited his abilities. Also, restraining his abilities the way he did left him open for more attacks, making him more vulnerable. Bakugo charging in headlong without knowing what would be on the other side and ignoring the bomb completely, trying to defeat his opponent rather than assist his teammate, resulted in him being caught off guard and captured. Uraraka and Izuku had a solid plan. Izuku would have that water clone of Todoroki deal with Todoroki, while Izuku dealt with Bakugo, giving Ochako the chance to capture the bomb. Being able to go at it through a hole made in the floor without causing any structural damage, and doing so quite quietly. With All Might thinking, "I didn't get to say anything," as he remarks, "Well, yes, there were a couple other things, but you get the gist." As they continue with the fights. In the fight that Ida takes over Todoroki's place, it becomes more combat oriented, but overall ends up with Ida's team winning. As Bakugo is frustrated, looking at Todoroki, stating, "Stubborn half and half," walking off away from him. This being the official first time he calls Todoroki half and half. With that, the testing for the hero course does end like in canon, with All Might blitzing away, barely being able to make it before his time runs out. As they begin to leave school, with all of his classmates congratulating him and stating that he did crazy good, remarking about how well he has control over his quirks. And all seemed pretty good. As Izuku and his group was leaving, Todoroki was in the upper part of UA looking down on them, thinking that I want to be the best. I think I found who I have to go through. Staring directly at Izuku. And this is where we'll be ending it for right now. Do hope you enjoyed. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys next time.